I got home from work earlier than usual that Thursday around 5:10 p.m., which for me might as well be the crack of dawn. I remember it clearly because I even texted Heather as I left the office, heading out early. Finally caught a break. She didn't respond, but I figured she was napping or maybe running errands. No big deal. The drive back was oddly peaceful. The kind where the radio plays your favorite songs on shuffle, the highway clears just in time, and you don't hit a single red light. It was one of those rare, quiet moments where life feels like it's cooperating. I thought maybe I'd stop and grab takeout or surprise Heather with dinner plans, something simple, thoughtful, domestic. But when I walked through our front door, everything shifted. It was silent. Not just no one's home kind of silent. I mean the kind of quiet that clings to the walls. No TV, no music, no clinking from the kitchen, not even the faint buzz of her voice on a phone call. It was eerie. I called out once, "Heather," as I dropped my keys onto the console near the door. No response. I stood still for a second, listening. That's when I heard the distant sound of water running upstairs. Then, a moment later, it shut off. Seconds passed. Then came the sound of the bathroom door opening, soft footfalls on carpet, the creak of the bedroom floor near the dresser. Heather was home. I leaned against the stair rail, waiting, and after a few minutes she came down the steps. Her hair was damp, tucked behind her ears. She was wearing her oversized robe, the one I got her last Christmas, gray fleece, monogrammed initials over her heart. She looked clean, refreshed, the kind of relaxed you usually see after a long bath or spa day. But something about the scene felt off from the jump. Then I saw it. A bracelet. It peeked out from beneath the cuff of her robe, catching the light for just a second as she adjusted her sleeve. Sleek. Metallic. Polished stainless steel or titanium, definitely not one of hers. Heather's style leans earthy, organic. Woven bangles. Beaded cuffs. That sort of thing. This one was angular, clean, almost masculine. Too industrial to be from her usual collection. I stared at it a beat too long. She noticed. And just like that, she pulled her sleeve down over it with a practiced little movement like she'd done it 100 times before. "Oh, this," she said casually, brushing a wet strand of hair off her face. "It's not mine. The spa must have mixed up the lockers or something. It was in the robe pocket, I think. I meant to take it off." Her voice was light. Way too light. And that's when my stomach began to twist. Because Heather doesn't go to spas that often, maybe once every few months if she gets a gift card. And even then, she tells me about it. This was the first I'd heard about a spa visit, and the way she said it, it didn't feel spontaneous. It felt planted. I nodded slowly, but my mind was already rewinding. We walked into the kitchen together, and she opened the fridge like everything was normal. She asked how work was. I said fine. She mentioned making a grocery run tomorrow, then asked if I wanted leftover curry for dinner. Her voice was calm. Her eyes avoided mine. The conversation played out like a well-rehearsed script, one she'd written, memorized, and now performed without missing a line. That was the scariest part. It wasn't the bracelet itself that threw me. It was how prepared she seemed. Heather, who normally forgot where she left her phone half the time and couldn't lie to save her life, she had an answer ready, one that tried a little too hard to sound casual. She never even took the bracelet off. Just covered it and changed the subject. I didn't press her right then. I just went along with it, nodding, playing my part. But inside, something was unraveling. It felt like the moment you realize you've been walking on a frozen lake and you hear the first crack beneath your foot. You don't fall through immediately, but you know it's coming. I made small talk. I asked her what spa she went to, just to see if the lie could breathe. She froze for a half second, just a flicker, and then said, "Oh, you know, that little one off Hawthorne. The place with the lavender towels." She chuckled like it was an inside joke. "Only there's no spa off Hawthorne with lavender towels. That's a candle store." I didn't call her out. Instead, I asked, did they at least get the massage right? She blinked. "Oh, I didn't get a massage. Just steam room. Facial. You know." I nodded, but it was already too late. Her story had holes. Not big ones, but just enough for light to pass through. And maybe that's what made it worse, not that she was lying, but that she wasn't even trying that hard. It made me feel like she didn't expect me to notice. Like she didn't think I'd question anything. Or worse, like she had already accepted that I wouldn't matter enough to ask. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat alone on the couch with a beer I didn't finish. I stared at the TV without turning it on. I kept replaying the way she tugged her sleeve down, how quickly she pivoted to dinner, how clean and calm she had been. It was too smooth. Heather had never been that smooth. I thought back to a couple of months ago when she'd started doing yoga again. I remember being happy she had something for herself, something to unwind. I even bought her a new mat. But lately, those classes started running longer. Sometimes she'd say the instructor kept them for tea after, or she'd mention grabbing smoothies with a few new yoga friends I'd never met. She'd come home tired, but a different kind of tired, rested, glowy, even. I remember thinking she looked good, confident. Now I wasn't so sure. Suddenly the bracelet wasn't just a misplaced spa accessory. It was a breadcrumb, a clue. The first visible crack in something I hadn't realized was already breaking. I didn't sleep well that night, and when I woke up the next morning, I found myself scanning her wrist in the kitchen. The bracelet was gone, replaced by one of her usual handmade cuffs. She smiled at me over coffee like everything was fine. But nothing felt fine anymore, and I hadn't even started asking real questions yet. After the bracelet, I started noticing everything. Not in a paranoid, jump-at-shadows kind of way, but in that slow, spiraling awareness where you realize how many red flags you ignored simply because you didn't want to believe they meant anything. It's strange how the mind works when it's finally ready to see what's been in front of it all along. Once that switch flips, nothing looks the same again. Started with her phone. Heather used to leave it anywhere, on the couch, kitchen counter, even in the bathroom when she showered. It was just a phone back then. No secrets, no tension. But now, it was always face down, always with her. Sometimes even clutched in her hand while watching TV, thumb gently hovering like she was waiting for something, or someone. I told myself I was reading too much into it. People change. Habits shift. But it didn't stop there. She used to get home from yoga classes a little after 8. Lately, she started rolling in closer to 9:30. Once, 10. She'd blame traffic, or a chatty instructor, or losing track of time. But it always came with a weird smile, like she was offering a pre-packaged excuse instead of the truth. And her clothes. That part hit me weirdly hard. Heather's always had good style, but she's never been flashy. Comfort over couture, that was her thing. But now it was crop tops and fitted yoga leggings, expensive sneakers she never used to care about, makeup to a class where you're supposed to sweat, and perfume that wasn't the usual lavender and rose. It smelled sharper, bolder. I remember sitting on the bed one night, watching her pack her gym bag like it was a ritual. She folded each item like it mattered where every thread lay. Tucked in a brand new face towel, then a second, then a mini bottle of body mist she hadn't owned a month ago. I asked her if the gym had upgraded or something. She laughed and said, "I like looking nice when I sweat now." That one sentence stuck with me, like she was trying to sell it to herself more than to me. Then there were the weekends. Heather started doing these little shopping trips on Saturdays, supposedly meeting friends or browsing boutiques in downtown Portland, but she'd come back empty-handed. No bags, no receipts, no new clothes. When I asked what she bought, she'd say nothing really or just window shopping. I didn't think much of it the first time. The second time, I noticed she changed outfits before leaving and again when she came home. The third time, she came back with her hair redone. I asked her if she went to the salon. "No," she said, brushing it off. "I just put it up in the car." That didn't make sense. But I let it slide. Again. She also got twitchier when I surprised her. One afternoon, I got home early from a supply run and walked in while she was FaceTiming someone. She scrambled to end the call so fast I barely caught a glance of the screen. Just a flash of a shoulder and maybe a male voice saying, "I'll call you BA." Before it went black, she told me it was her friend Lydia. But Lydia has never had a voice that deep. And then there was her birthday dinner. That one still burns. We went to a small Italian place she loved. I spent the whole week planning it. Called ahead to order her favorite wine. Made sure the table was in a quiet corner. I even wore the blazer she liked, the one I usually save for weddings. She thanked me, kissed me on the cheek, said I was so sweet. But halfway through the meal, she checked her phone 5 times in under a minute. She smiled at it once. A kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. I asked her what was funny. She said it was a meme from her group chat. I nodded. But later, I saw the screen light up with a name I didn't recognize, J Yoga. That was the first time I felt my heart really drop. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to look insecure or jealous. I told myself it's probably just someone from her class. Maybe they organize meetups. Maybe he's dating someone. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But that name, it kept ringing in my head. Jay. I started staying up later at night. Heather would go to bed and I'd lie there pretending to scroll through Reddit or answer emails. But what I was really doing was watching her. Listening for her breathing. Watching how she turned away from me, held her phone under the covers sometimes, smiled at it like it was telling her things she used to whisper to me. The worst part? I wasn't even angry. Not then. I was just hollow. I kept thinking, how did we get here? We used to be so solid. The kind of couple our friends rolled their eyes at because we finished each other's sentences and genuinely liked doing nothing together. Grocery runs felt like dates. Sunday mornings were sacred. Now we barely touched. She stopped reaching for my hand during movies. Her hugs got shorter. Her kisses turned into forehead pecks. And every time I asked her how her day went, I got the same half-smile and one-word answers. Fine. Busy. Normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. I started checking the credit card statements. At first, just a glance. Then I started going through them line by line. Yoga studios. Juice bars. Gas stations nowhere near the ones by her usual route. Then there was a charge for a small boutique hotel in Lake Oswego, a day pass spa package on a random Tuesday afternoon. When I asked her about it, she said it was a birthday gift from one of the girls at yoga. Said they made a day out of it. Said she told me about it. She hadn't. And when I told her that, she laughed like I must have forgotten. Babe, I swear I told you. You probably just forgot. You've been super distracted with work lately. I wanted to believe her. I did. I wanted to let it go like all the other little things. But that excuse, me being distracted, was becoming her go-to shield. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen and just stared at the fridge. Photos of us covered the door. Trips. Weddings. Lazy beach days. All frozen moments of a life that didn't match the air I was breathing now. And then it clicked. It wasn't one thing. It was all of it. The phone. The late nights. The shopping trips with no bags. The new perfume. The bracelet. The too-calm lie. The way she seemed so present when she was with me, but only on the surface. It was like someone had replaced her with a version that knew how to smile and talk and laugh, but couldn't feel anything with me anymore. That realization didn't explode. It sunk. Heavy. Quiet. Unavoidable. Heather wasn't just changing. She was already gone. And I was finally starting to see the truth she'd spent weeks, maybe months, carefully hiding behind routine and routine and routine, waiting for me to stop looking closely. But I was looking now. And I couldn't unsee what I saw. 2 weeks passed after the bracelet incident and whatever sliver of hope I'd been clinging to finally gave out. You know that moment when you stop doubting yourself and start doubting them? It's not a rush of anger. It's a quiet switch. Something internal gives way, not in fire, but in ice. The warmth between you cools, the benefit of the doubt fades, and every moment starts getting measured, dissected, cataloged. That was where I was now. Watching Heather not with concern, but with calculation. And then the mistake came. It wasn't big or dramatic. It was a notification. A single, stupid ping from our shared credit card. She was in the shower. Her phone was charging in the kitchen. Mine buzzed first. Your card ending in 0382 was used at Cedar Bluff Resort and Spa. Date, Friday. Time, 11:14 p.m. Amount, $472.32. I stood there frozen, holding my phone like it had just whispered something forbidden. Cedar Bluff was not a yoga studio. It was a luxury hotel about 40 minutes outside of Portland. And it wasn't the kind of place you went alone to clear your mind. It had couples packages. Wine tastings. A fireplace in every room. I knew this because Heather had mentioned it years ago, back when we were still newly married and dreaming up fantasy weekend getaways we never took. This was not one of those dream weekends. She had told me she was going to a college alumni mixer that Friday. Said it would run late. Said she might stay at her friend Abby's place if she drank too much. I remember thinking she looked especially good that night, tight jeans, soft sweater, fresh blowout. She kissed me goodbye like she didn't want to be late. I even told her to have fun, like an idiot. But now I had a receipt. I walked to the living room in a daze and opened my laptop. The resort site was sleek, modern, tailored for high-end clientele. Rooms with scenic views, a private spa wing, and a guest dining lounge that boasted an unforgettable romantic atmosphere. I called the resort. Hi, I said, trying to keep my voice level. I'm just double-checking a reservation I think I made online for my wife and me. It should have been last weekend, Friday night through Sunday morning. The name would be under Heather Cole. Or possibly Ethan Cole. There was a pause as the clerk typed. Yes, she said finally. There was a 2-night stay booked under Heather Cole, checked in Friday, checked out early Sunday morning. And that was for 2 guests? Yes, sir. For 2. Thanks, I said, ending the call before I could throw the phone across the room. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just sat there for what felt like an hour, staring at the wall. The dots didn't need connecting anymore. They were already bolded, highlighted, underlined in red. That's when the universe decided to twist the knife. I was scrolling through Instagram later that night, pretending to be numb, when a DM popped up from someone I barely recognized, Amanda. An acquaintance of Heather's from a few years back. We'd had dinner with her and her husband once. Polite, not close. The message was short. Hey. I wasn't sure if I should send this, but I saw this on someone's story and thought you might want to know. Attached was a screenshot *T. It was a photo posted from inside Cedar Bluff Spa Lounge. 2 people in plush robes lounging on deck chairs near the fireplace. Heather, unmistakably, was leaning into a man's chest, both of them laughing. His arm wrapped around her shoulders, his face mostly turned away. But it wasn't his face I noticed. It was the bracelet. The exact same one from 2 weeks ago, the steel band she had accidentally gotten from the spa. It gleamed in the firelight, resting on his wrist, pressed against her body like a claim. She hadn't gotten the bracelet from a locker mix-up. She had gotten it from him. The caption read, "Best weekend. No regrets." The poster had tagged some vague username at live.in.motion, and I recognized it instantly as one of Heather's newer friends she'd met through yoga. The kind who posted inspirational quotes about energy and detachment and somehow always found themselves at rooftop brunches with a mimosa in hand. I clicked the tag, scrolled through the profile, and found more photos from that same weekend. Different angles. No other faces. Heather wasn't tagged, but her clothes, her hair, her ringless left hand, it was all right there, recorded like she'd never have to answer for it. I just sat there, staring at the screen like it would change. It didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, wondering how someone could lie so fully, so completely, and still look peaceful. She stirred at one point and reached for me in her sleep. Her hand brushed my chest, then settled back to her side. And I realized how many nights I'd missed these cues, thinking maybe the warmth meant something, when in reality she was just resting beside the man she hadn't quite left yet. The next morning I took my time. She was gone by the time I got up. Probably at yoga. I opened my laptop again and went through her shared account. Found the gas charges, the food deliveries near the hotel, a florist charge I didn't remember. She'd bought flowers, but they never made it to her house. I checked our security camera history, the driveway cam synced to my phone. On Friday night, her car left the garage at 9:27 p.m. Returned Sunday morning at 6:41 a.m. Just in time for coffee and her usual post-alumni brunch with Abby. There were no gaps in the data. No plausible deniability. No room left for lies. The proof wasn't a bombshell. It was surgical. Every piece fit together with terrifying precision. Not the kind of carelessness you'd expect from a fling. This had planning. Routine. Familiarity. She hadn't stumbled into this. She'd walked in with both eyes open. Later that day, Amanda messaged again. I hope I didn't stir anything up. I just felt like you deserved to know. You two always seemed like the solid couple in our circle. I'm sorry if I was wrong. I didn't reply. What could I say? That she wasn't wrong and we were never as solid as we seemed? That Heather was good at pretending? That I'd been good at believing? It was Sunday night when Heather finally mentioned the weekend. We were eating takeout on the couch. She said the mixer was fine, a little boring, and that Abby's couch was as lumpy as ever. She smiled at me as she said it. Her voice didn't waver. I looked at her and realized I didn't recognize the person in front of me anymore. And for the first time, I didn't feel confused. I felt done. I didn't confront her. Not that night, not the next morning, not even after I watched her lie straight through her teeth about how dead the alumni mixer was. She folded laundry while telling me about reconnecting with old dorm friends, humming along to a song on the radio like her world was simple, intact. I stared at her hands. Steady. Deliberate. Folding my t-shirts like nothing had changed. But everything had. And I realized then I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to give her the chance to cry, to twist the story into some soft, romantic tragedy where she didn't mean to fall or didn't want to hurt anyone. That kind of confrontation gives a person too much power. It gives them a platform, an audience, an escape hatch. I wouldn't offer her one. Instead, I chose silence. I chose precision. The very next day, I went to work like normal. Sat through 2 meetings, answered emails, smiled when needed. But in between, I started mapping my exit. I began by opening a new checking account at a credit union across town. No shared access. No paper trail mail to the house. I transferred $15,000 from my business emergency fund, just enough to cover first and last month's rent on a new place, some essentials, and a few weeks buffer in case I needed time off to breathe. Then I called my business attorney. I need to secure my personal stake in the LLC, I told her. And I need it airtight. She didn't ask too many questions, just the ones that mattered. Are you anticipating marital complications? Yes, I said, voice flat. But not a messy one. I just need to make sure my half doesn't get touched. Within 48 hours, the paperwork was in motion. My name separated legally from hers on all ownership documents related to my woodworking design firm. I had poured 10 years of my life into that company. I wasn't about to let it become collateral damage in a war she didn't even know was starting. Back home, I was careful. I smiled at her stories. Helped cook dinner. Even offered to take the trash out. I didn't want her sensing the shift, not yet. Heather, for her part, seemed more at ease than she had in weeks. Her phone was still glued to her hand and she still disappeared for hours claiming to be at hot yoga, but something in her posture said she believed the worst had passed. Like she dodged a bullet. She had no idea the bullet had never been aimed at her. I was saving it for the structure we had built. For the image we both clung to. I was getting ready to burn it down, one silent match at a time. A week later, I contacted a realtor in Boise. I picked Boise for 2 reasons. 1, she wouldn't think to look for me there. We had never been. No ties. No memories. No mutual friends. 2, I had a client out that way, an artisan furniture maker I'd worked with remotely. He'd always joked that if I ever wanted to go off-grid with taste, Boise was the spot. He wasn't wrong. I flew out on a Friday, told Heather it was for a supplier conference in Seattle. She didn't blink. Probably grateful not to juggle her lies that weekend. In Boise, I found a rental cabin near Lucky Peak Lake. Small, modest, quiet. Just enough space for my tools, a laptop, and a mattress on the floor. The view alone was worth the lease. Pines out every window, water on the horizon, silence that didn't accuse me of anything. I signed a 6-month lease on the spot. Paid 3 months up front. Bought a prepaid phone and gave the number to no one but my attorney and accountant. When I got back home, Heather asked how Seattle was. I said rainy. She laughed. That's Seattle. I nodded and asked her how Abby was doing. She blinked for just a second too long. Oh, you mean from the mixer? Yeah, I said, sipping my coffee. You said she stayed at the same hotel. Oh, right? Yeah, she's good. Still allergic to cheap wine. She smiled. I smiled back. Then I deleted her number from my backup drive. Over the next few days, I started packing in layers. I called it garage organization and she didn't ask questions. She never came down there anyway. I boxed up essentials, winter gear, documents, woodworking tools, external drives with 10 years of design files. Everything else, gifts, wedding china, photos, stayed right where they were. I didn't want memories. I wanted clean lines. I also canceled the resort vacation we had planned for the following month. Heather's birthday present. A week in Costa Rica. She didn't know I booked it. It was supposed to be a surprise. Now it was a message. The money refunded directly to my private account. I started cooking more, part of the illusion. She loved it. Thought I was finally coming back around. We even shared a bottle of wine one night and she leaned her head on my shoulder like we were still something. I let her. Not out of cruelty. But because I needed the ending to feel distant, surreal. Like a dream she wouldn't realize had ended until she woke up and the house was empty. 3 days before my departure, I sent an email to my Boise client. Hey, I'll be in town longer than expected. Interested in collaborating on a custom line? Small batch stuff. Quiet work. Let me know. He replied within the hour. Absolutely. Come by the shop Monday. Bring ideas. Done. The night before I left, I couldn't sleep. Not out of anxiety, but out of strange peace. The kind of calm that comes when the decision's been made and nothing can shake it anymore. Heather lay next to me, sound asleep, face turned toward the wall. Her breathing was steady, almost childlike. I stared at the ceiling and realized how quiet the room had become. No emotion. No fear. No future. At 4:15 a.m., I slipped out of bed and dressed in the dark. I moved silently, one last act of courtesy. I left my keys on the hook by the door. My wedding ring on the kitchen table. And a note, handwritten, no signature. You've already replaced me. I just didn't realize it until too late. so I won't try to reclaim a space that's no longer mine. Take care. By 5:30, I was on the road. The sun hadn't risen yet. The highway was clear. I drove with the windows down, letting the cold air whip against my face, hoping it would sting more than it did. When I crossed the state line into Idaho, I pulled off to a rest stop. Just to breathe. Just to make it real. I looked back once. Not at the road, not at the mountains, but at the version of myself I was leaving behind. And I didn't feel regret. I felt free. She didn't know anything was wrong. Not yet. The morning I left, she probably rolled over and patted my side of the bed, half asleep, expecting the warmth of a sleeping husband and finding only the ghost of one. Maybe she blinked, maybe she stretched, maybe she yawned and assumed I had gone out for coffee. I imagine she didn't check her phone right away. Not before brushing her teeth or checking her hair in the mirror. The mirror that still held my toothbrush in the reflection, though not for long. Maybe she called my name once. Just once. Like she wasn't worried, just curious. She would have come downstairs, expecting the smell of breakfast or the sound of me fiddling with the radio while the eggs burned. But the house would have been too quiet. Still. Not eerie at first, just unusually neat. No coat on the hook. No keys in the bowl. No shoes kicked under the bench. Just the note. Centered on the kitchen table. I imagine her reading it. Maybe she didn't get it at first. Maybe she thought it was a joke. Maybe she laughed, thinking it was part of some elaborate birthday surprise. Then maybe she saw the ring. And I hope in that instant something in her stomach dropped through the floor. She didn't call me. Not that morning. Not even that afternoon. That part surprised me. I thought I'd get the angry texts, the frantic voicemails, the what the hell is this kind of chaos. But there was nothing. Silence. And that's how I knew she wasn't confused. She understood exactly what the note meant. Still, she thought I wouldn't go through with it. That I'd come back. That I'd cool down and talk it out. Maybe she assumed I'd text her by the end of the week. Maybe she even planned to give me space, let me come crawling back with a bouquet and half an apology like a scene out of a rom-com where the audience still roots for the couple to make it. But I wasn't coming back. She just didn't know it yet. The following week, she had a trip planned, one I booked months ago. A family vacation. All-inclusive beach resort. Flights booked out of PDX. The last vestige of the life she thought we were still living. Heather didn't cancel it. She leaned into it. It was supposed to be a surprise for her mom and younger sister, a bonding trip. I'd made shirts. Literally. Custom ones. Cole Family Getaway 2024 printed across the front in bold navy letters. I found the confirmation email buried in our shared inbox a few days before I left, and I couldn't help but laugh at the timing. She thought she'd be flying out to paradise while I sat somewhere nursing heartbreak and reconsidering my decision. But she was flying solo and she didn't even know it yet. That Friday, I sat on a bench outside a diner in Boise, sipping black coffee and watching the wind rustle through the pine trees. Across the country at that very moment, Heather was arriving at the airport. And I knew exactly what was about to happen, because I'd canceled the reservation days ago. Directly. I called the airline. I spoke to the resort. I made sure my name and hers were wiped from the manifest. No ticket. No boarding pass. No vacation. No future. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I needed the illusion to collapse in public. At 8:17 a.m. she arrived at the terminal. Her mom drove. Her sister sat in the back, filming TikToks in matching sunglasses and laughing about cocktails on the beach. I imagined Heather in the front seat, phone in hand, checking herself in the mirror, pulling down the hem of her fitted tank top, brushing invisible lint from her jeans. Probably wearing the new shoes she claimed were a gift from a friend. They rolled up to the curb with duffel bags, printed tees, bright suitcases, and sun hats too large to fit under the plane seat. Heather led them to the check-in counter with a kind of ease you can't fake. She smiled at the airline clerk. 3 passengers. Heather Cole, she said. The clerk typed. Typed again. Then paused. I'm sorry, ma'am. There's no reservation under that name. Heather laughed politely. Try Ethan Cole? More typing. Still nothing. Maybe there's a mistake, she said, leaning in now. The confirmation came weeks ago. First class upgrade and everything. I'm sorry, the clerk said. There's no active itinerary for either of those names. Heather's face changed then. Not immediately. Slowly. First confusion, then doubt, then when she looked back at her mother and sister, panic bleeding into her voice. Her mom stepped forward. Is this some kind of joke? Heather turned, her cheeks flushed. No. No, of course not. I don't understand. Ethan handled it. It's paid for. It should be right here. Her sister pulled out her phone, started searching the airline app. Can't you just call him? And then silence. The kind of silence that exposes everything. Heather stared at the floor, biting her lip. I can't. He's gone. Her mom crossed her arms. What does that mean? Heather didn't answer. I don't know what excuse she gave. I imagine it was something vague. Maybe she said I canceled it without telling her. Maybe she said I made a mistake. Maybe she claimed she'd rebook it later. But the truth didn't matter anymore. Her sister sat down on her suitcase, shaking her head. Are you serious right now? She asked. Her mom said nothing for a while. Just stood there, staring at her daughter like she didn't recognize her. And in that moment, I suspect Heather felt the first real crack. Not just a skipped heartbeat. A collapse. She had built a world that counted on me showing up to pay, to apologize, to clean up the mess. And now I wasn't there. And neither was the ticket. Or the story. Or the man who once believed everything she said without question. Eventually, they left the terminal. No beach. No umbrella drinks. Just a silent car ride home. She still didn't call me. But that night, her name lit up on my email. Subject, please read this. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I sat on my porch in Boise, watching the sun dip behind the lake. I thought about how far I'd come in a month. Not physically, emotionally. From suspicion to clarity. From clarity to action. From action to freedom. Somewhere out there, Heather was sitting in a quiet room, maybe surrounded by her packed bags, wondering how her life had spun so suddenly off axis. But I wasn't wondering anything anymore. I was done looking back.